It's funny because I was never really aware of just what an extraordinary woman my Aunt Patty was. I mean, she was always away working, so I didn't really see too much of her. When she invited me to come out on one of her trips, it was a real eye-opener to see what she was doing. I suppose she was unconventional in that not many women are attracted to that sort of job. She'd be out in all weathers, even in these really mountainous seas, but, she never used to panic. She just got on with the job, whatever the danger. She was totally competent, even when things got really rough. And, do you know, she'd never learnt to swim.
For my dad, nothing was too much trouble, especially when people showed a bit of interest in what he was up to. When he was working, he'd be digging away at some excavation or other, and members of the public, visitors, would just come up to him and start talking to him, and he'd drop whatever he was doing and, even if he'd been working all day, he'd be really conscientious about giving them a complete tour of the site, with a free lecture thrown in. And personally, I wouldn't have that sort of patience. But then I guess I take more after my mother, who's always in a rush.
My brother's a real perfectionist. He's been spending a lot of time recently getting this new show ready, and he's been going to incredible lengths to get this new trick right. Like, he's been practicing in front of this video camera he's got for weeks, it seems. It's been driving the rest of us mad. What he does is play it back afterwards, the camera I mean, to check you can't see how it's done from any angle. He just wants to hoodwink absolutely everyone. You know how observant kids are especially, so he goes on and on till he's totally satisfied.
Ivan was really one of my dad's mates, but we counted him as one of the family. And he was one of those outgoing types who could speak to anyone and incredibly generous with us kids, always came back with some unusual gift or other from his trips. And then he'd sit down with us and help us do our schoolwork and so on. We loved him, and we loved his stories of his underwater adventures and the strange creatures he'd seen. He made it sound as if he'd been doing something extremely dangerous and he'd been incredibly brave. No doubt we were a bit naive, but we lapped it all up.
Margo was one of my mother's cousins, actually. Personally, I never got to know her well because she was always travelling here and there. She had so many engagements. I've got a few of her recordings from her younger days, though. The sound quality is not too good now because we've listened to them so many times. And, after a time, the vinyl gets worn out. But I think her playing really does reflect her optimism and joy. You just wouldn't suspect that she was going blind at the time. What courage in the face of such an affliction, don't you think?
Yes, I was able to give a friend a room once when she had to move out of her house quite quickly. She'd been having problems with one of her flatmates, so she came to stay with us for a while, just for a few months. And I think that helped her quite a lot in her situation, which wasn't easy for her because she was studying at university, and it was a long way from her family home.
One of the best is from the summer vacations, which we always used to spend together as a family at the seaside. I used to do quite a lot of sport with my dad, playing tennis, swimming, that sort of thing. And I remember one time we went water skiing, which was a great new experience for me. Yes, that's a very good one, because I loved being close to my dad and doing things with him. Things I wouldn't have done with my mum.
Where I live, people tend to be bilingual. They speak the original and the national language, and they switch between languages with ease. As a result, they seem to find it easier to learn other languages as well. At least I know quite a lot of people who speak several foreign languages.
People do worry a bit about how the language is changing. I think due to globalization, I suppose, lots of fashionable loanwords are coming into the language, particularly from English. So my mother tongue's not at all the same as it was, say, 50 years ago. Personally, I don't know if that's a bad thing. I mean, if people find it easier to express themselves using loanwords, then perhaps they should.
I find it frustrating because I spent years trying to reach an advanced level, but Now my English has got a bit rusty because I don't use it very often, and that's a pity.
I spent years at school studying Spanish and never learned to speak it well. I guess I should have been sent on an exchange to a Spanish or a Mexican school for 6 months or thereabouts, because everyone knows that living in the country, you just pick up the language naturally, and that's just about the best way to learn it.
I'm really dedicated to studying languages. I aim to achieve an excellent command of English, which means becoming highly articulate and being able to use the language accurately and effortlessly.
Language is a tool for achieving other things. And frankly, I wouldn't consider accuracy to be as important as fluency when learning a foreign language. I think the main thing is to make oneself understood.
We live in a highly competitive world. Countries compete with each other, employers compete with each other, and people compete. Consequently, we should be teaching young people to use language for persuasion rather than self-expression. It's all very well being able to say what you think and feel, but you've got to be able to sell yourself, sell your product, achieve your aims.